Another part to the video. Sorry about how the previous video ended. Had to deal with like a little emergency. But we're back now. The next group of films here, the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Now, to be fair, I think that the first three were probably the best. Then they kind of like milking a dead cow afterwards. It's kind of like the first one is a solid movie. The first Pirates of the Caribbean movie is a very good movie. I always like the idea of pirates that old school warrior of the high seas, and Johnny Depp played this phenomenally. And of course, each movie, the sequel was definitely delving into something bigger. Uh, and then the third one is like a nice little wrap up that completed the circle. Then it's kind of like, I don't know, seem to like just keep going. It's kind of the same issues I have with the Fast and Furious franchise. It's just like it just keeps going. It's not Marvel. Marvel has the benefit of having a plethora of characters already set in place from good 60 to 90 years of different characters that they can mine from. This is basically a this is basically a theater ride made into a movie, a successful movie, because you know who wouldn't want to watch a pirates movie, and you got something to do it with. You got something to lay the foundation for. But I think you kind of ran this to the ground. I mean, by the third one, it's just messed up. It could have been just a nice three solid film franchise. But some people might like the fourth and fifth one. You know, they have their opinion. That's fine. And you liked it. You liked it. It's great. Uh, I don't like the. This is like I wish they could have. I don't know. I feel like I'm not sure if anybody was like necessarily having. I won't say they weren't having fun with it. It's just like something was dipping. The quality was dipping slightly, and it's like I don't even know if Johnny Depp wanted to do this anymore. But y'all pulled up a truckload of money in front of him. Kind of like, okay, it's another check kind of thing. Instead of like you can tell by the first few movies he was enjoying. Of course he loved the character. I'm pretty sure there's been videos of him going to like those Make a Wish kids, or at least going to a school or something like that, dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow, because a kid loved that character so much, and they got Johnny Depp to come by as Captain Jack, and that's perfectly fine. But it's just that it's you know uh, it's just like I think he lost the passion for it after a bit. But the first three Pirates of the Caribbean movies are solid films. But the first one, The Curse of the Black Pearl, still is the better one out of all of them, to be honest. And another thing that's kind of like, was the problem, because like their main villains throughout this is usually always got to deal with zombies in some fashion. I mean, like it could have been more interesting. It's like, let's say you was dealing with uh, uh Neptune, but like you know uh Davy Jones, because you know how like I'll send you to Davy Jones' locker, and it's like, you know, just make Davy Jones an actual villain in one of these things. Mix it up a bit. Don't keep doing the same uh Barbosa thing every time, but with different actors, because it's the same thing. I don't think Ford did it at all, uh, but Either make it a solid pirate adventure movie with no mysticism about it, or try doing there's different myths along about the sea that falls in line with the pirate uh, era of the golden age of piracy that you could have utilized, because the first three movies is, all mixing up with different versions of some kind of zombified pirate hunting Jack or dealing with Jack in some fashion. And like that's what I'm thinking. Like they could have, the first three could have been about like uh these no, wait a minute. What's the second one? Davy Jones. I'm pretty sure, but maybe the water god Neptune, maybe something like that. Like I said, you have a plethora of ideas centered around different myths centered around during the golden age of piracy that you could mine from 4 and 5. Uh, I don't mind the idea of like uh, some a pirate coming after revenge from what Jack did as when he was like a young lad, but he's basically Barbossa. Each one of these villains are basically Barbossa, and there's nothing unique about them. And it's like, uh, it's hard to say because I mentioned about Fast and Furious, they all over the place. When you have a solid idea and it goes to into completion, a solid finalized completion, and somehow you want to bring in more stuff, don't obviously lose the core aspect that made that franchise good, but just don't uh, uh, do the same beats totally. Like how do I put this? Uh, the piracy part is the core. Mixing it up so you can still maintain the sailing on the high seas, but you got a different villain. Like there's enemies of the pirates, plenty of them, like the conquistadors. You've seen them like all in like a group when uh was in like Pirates 3. You see like different pirate clans. You could have made like easily one of them, like, or at least an offshoot of one of them to be uh Orlando Bloom's or Jack's enemy in another installment, or at least make an offshoot or something. Like, but we gotta have Jack was the favorite. He has to be in these things, and it's gotta be centered around him. And it's like, okay, it's fine, but do something with it that's unique. Make it a human person that he has to deal with, or some kind of like a bounty hunter coming after Jack, uh, or if you're going the mystical route, there's other mystical things during the golden age of piracy you can done with. But the first three Pirates of the Caribbean movies are solid movies. I recommend those three. If you want to check out 4 and 5, that's perfectly fine. But all in all, to be honest with you, the very first one is the better one. Pokemon, the first movie. Man, I was so hyped for this movie when this came out. It was solid. Man, Pokemon easily my favorite anime. Right next to that with Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's like all-time favorites. I always well, every time I return back to it, it's usually the either gym battles and the the Pokemon leagues. Those are probably the more interesting ones, to be honest with you. There's very few in between episodes that I care for, like the episode when Ash first meets Charmander was probably the most saddest episode through the Indigo Plateau franchise or arc, I should say, and that still breaks my heart. It's like easily you're dealing with like animal abuse and a kids movie, but and the same thing when he did with Chimchar. Uh, so you can tell some realistic stuff on these things if you do it right. But Pokemon the first movie was so hyped. It was like you dealing with Mew and Mewtwo, the first two extra Pokemons, like very unique psychic types. Uh, and besides Meowth, this is the first time you actually hear another Pokemon talk psychically, but still beyond Mewtwo, you can hear beyond Meowth, you can hear Mewtwo, another Pokemon speak, and everybody understands them. Everybody understands them. But yeah, and he was like a serious threat. Mewtwo is no joke. He's easily, still to this day, considered part of one of the most powerful Pokemon, uh, and probably easily the most powerful psychic type. So he's not to be slept on. The only person that actually easily can go toe to toe with him is Mew and other legendary Pokemon themselves. Like you're trying to go against Pokemon and anybody less than that, they're done. You gotta be in that legendary stats to even hang with him. And this is like a psychic type on top of that. But the first Pokemon movie, you are a fan of Pokemon, you love Pokemon, uh, check out, if you haven't checked it out, check out Pokemon the first movie. It will is it's a tearjerker. It's fun. And it's all things you love about like Pokemon and like the Indigo Plateau arc of the series. Very very good movie. Love it to death. Not the Mewtwo. They did like a 3D, uh, not 3D, but like a 3D graphics version of this. But I maintain the original, tried and true first Pokemon movie the way it came out at first. Then we got Pokemon Detective Pikachu. Man, I was so hyped for this movie. And when they first showed like the first trailer of this, it was like that's how you make a trailer. That's how you make a trailer. That is like we was worried about how it might look because around the same time they showed the, I think at least either the same parallel or a little bit after, or was it before the Sonic trailer came out, when they showed that realistic gross face of Sonic, and they had to spend months trying to rework that in the film to make it look like the way Sonic the Hedgehog's supposed to look. Detective Pikachu never had that problem. That's probably why it's one of the most successful uh, movies that I think based off a video game is like, they like people involved in it cared about this so much they want to make sure they got it just right. They want to make sure Pokemon look exactly the way they looked in cartoons, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And like you saw like their fur, they got scales. If you got Charizard, you get to see Charizard as like a around like 5'9" to 6 feet tall Charizard, somewhere around that height, with scales because he's a dragon. For God's sake, he's a dragon, and you get to see evolution when they're glowing all white and stuff. It's like you see like a Magikarp and evolving into a Gyarados, and it's scaly and slimy like a serpent would be in the water, and he looks just like it. And you give him like a pseudo face of what a lizard will be in real life. They make Charizard look like a Charizard, and like you got all these Pokemon with, like I said, fur. Like Pikachu, he has fur. It was not all smooth like a baby's butt because it looks smooth in the anime. He's a mouse. Mice has fur. So they represent that. It's a perfect example of making it look realistic in a world, but still maintain it's still a Pokemon at the end of the day. So just like animals in real life, uh, they don't have you know goofy facial expressions, but they still maintain like, okay, if Pokemon in real life, they still have fur just like any other animal. They have scales just like any other animal, but they just like Jigglypuff. You got Jigglypuff's face singing the Jigglypuff song, that sleepy sing attack, and putting people to sleep. But she has fur around her. She's not all smooth like a balloon, she actually like a furry little plush doll, and it's like oh my god, this is so adorable. So it's just like this movie is so much fun. It's like another detective film technically, but it's set in the world of Pokemon, and I hope they make another, not Detective Pikachu maybe, but another like a like a another branched off of this set in the Pokemon world, because you got so much to play with this. Like you don't have to have Justice Smith or Ryan Reynolds again, but you have maybe Ash Ketchum in real life or Red in real life, but in tell like a different story, or make a whole new character, on their Pokemon journey. It could be like a young teen on their Pokemon journey, catching Pokemon and dealing with like a maybe making it a three movie arc. Them starting off, uh, battling, the first two to four gym leaders, and dealing with Team Rocket or something, and then the second movie can deal with like the other half of the gym leaders to get the last four, uh, and then last four badges, and dealing with Team Rocket in the second half and dealing with them and finishing them off. And then the third is the Pokemon Stadium, where they either do it like the animated one, where they just fight in a tournament tier battle until one of them ends up as the winner, or you can do it like it is in the games when you're going to the uh, stadium and you battling your rival and all four Pokemon Elite Four members, and that can be in like an easily three arc thing that you can definitely fit in like a 2 hour each film. I mean, so much you can do with this Pokemon thing. I would kill to be voicing a Pokemon, any Pokemon. I don't care. I love Pokemon so much. I want to voice a Pokemon. I don't care which Pokemon. I do not care. It'll make my life to voice a Pokemon or a Yu-Gi-Oh card or a character, the two of my favorite animes of all time, just to be a part of that because I love it so much. It's just like it'll make my yeah, literally make my you know um, my world. It's just like just being a part of that franchise. It's just it just would be like a dream come true, no doubt. And it's just like I solidified in like I'm in the anime that I used to play cards with friends in grade school, and I literally am a part of the very thing I used to play. Well, used to I still play, but very thing I'm like so invested in since I was a grade schooler, and it's like it's just like I love Pokemon so much. It's like one of the greatest animes to me, and like above all else. And second will easily be maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! In terms of my favorite anime of all time. But I will get to those when I do my favorite anime. Once I get to those, that'll be in another video. But Detective Pikachu, definitely a great detective movie. If you love Pokemon 2, it represents the world perfectly. Definitely check it out. One easily a great uh, video game movie on the right, even above. I say Mortal Kombat because like at least Detective Pikachu stayed true to the Pokemon franchise. They didn't half-ass it. They put care into this film, and that's how I just love it so much. All right, we're gonna shift gears a bit. So now we're gonna be talking about Pulp Fiction, another great film. Probably the only Tarantino film I probably love more than anything. I've seen other Tarantino films, but this one's my favorite. I watch probably more so than any other of his films. But Pulp Fiction, uh, Sam Jackson, John Travolta, Uma Thurman, Ving Rhames, Bruce Willis, uh, uh, I mean, everyone is just so good in this movie. and it's like very iconic. You know, up there with like let's say with Godfather personally, because it's like you know, very very uh, a well put together movie. It's just you know I don't know how and little no little fact here. The guy who voices Static Shock and Green Lantern in the DC animated TV shows, uh, Phil Lamar, he was the kid who got, spoiler alert, shot accidentally by John Travolta in this film. And not apparently not many people knew that. And it wasn't like wasn't until a few years ago when I figured that out. But man, uh, you talking about bit roles from characters you didn't think was gonna be big until later, much later in life. But man, uh, he still probably gets that every once in a while. Marvin, that was the name of the character. But yeah, this movie was like a very. And it was probably the first movie I think I heard uh, a white guy say the N word freely, just letting it fly. You know, Quentin Tarantino usually cameos in his own films, uh, and he plays a character that Sam Jackson and John Travolta asked for some help, and like he just said like the N word, let it fly like at least 3 times in a row in like a paragraph or a sentence, and it's like, whoa, this is okay with people. I mean, at the time I was like, whoa. I mean, right now it's kind of powerful. Of course, it'll be like, well, I don't think he'll do it now, given the climate. At least after last year's racial upheaval, but for the longest time, people just like they just rolled with it. It's like, okay, he uses the N word in his films, and usually, white guys just let it fly. It's usually him. And it's like, did you get this approved by at least a decent amount of black people before you just out there letting it fly all willy nilly? I mean, it doesn't hurt anybody. It's obviously not doing it within any malice or hate or anything like that. It's a movie. Don't freak out. But it's just like at the time, it was jarring in growing up as a kid, and I saw this movie, and it was like, wow, just letting that N word fly. It's just like with Rush Hour, which I'll get to, but they had Jackie Chan in the first movie say that twice, and it's like this is the first time he's like dealing with like Western movies. He was brought with do like a Western movie. We'll get to that in a moment, but he's just letting it fly twice, and it's like, whoa, don't let Jackie Chan say that word. What's wrong with you, director? Anyway, Pulp Fiction, one of the greatest movies of all time. It's like highly recommended. Uh, Great iconic scenes and great. You talking about great discussion in film, like I did with Jurassic Park in that little lunch scene with all those characters together. The discussion that John Travolta's character and Sam Jackson's character is so good, and like you can listen to these two talk about very mundane things, and but the it's just the undertones that has some profoundness to them. They just have a basic conversation before they bust in the door. They have a basic conversation about rubbing women's feet, and you're just hooked into that discussion. And it's just like it's very, very, very good. So yeah, Pulp Fiction definitely recommended. Denzel Washington, The Priestess Wife, with the late great Whitney Houston. Yeah, this is another good Christmas movie. Uh, Denzel Washington plays Angel, trying to help this preacher and his wife, uh, get their life in order, dealing with church and other machinations that just trying to like ruin all that. It's a great Denzel movie. Uh, uh, that well, there's another Denzel movie coming up in the end of this list, but I didn't put Training Day on this list because I enjoy Training Day, but when I got older, I didn't appreciate the fact that he got his first Oscar just by playing like a corrupt bad guy cop, and it's like he done so much more before and after that. Like his role in Glory was really good because like have you seen a meme or gif of Denzel Washington with a single tear with a shaved head? That's from Glory, and it's a good film. Not one of my favorites. I only seen it once. I didn't really care for it all that much, but he was phenomenal in it. And this, he's definitely phenomenal. It's a great film, very heartwarming film. You easily watched it with the family, especially around Christmas time. Whitney Houston definitely shine in this, and I just love it. And one of my favorite scenes in this film is when his character Dudley, the angel, sat down Whitney Houston's character and her child in this movie, who whose adopted friend had to move away. He was adopted. I guess he was staying with them until they found like a proper foster parent or something like that. So he was sad. His friend was Hakeem. Still, like he was like was feeling down about it. As a little kid, he doesn't understand about like what had to happen, and he's young. You don't understand what the circumstances behind all that was. All you know is his best friend was gone, and he doesn't know how to deal with it. Dudley sat down with them, and it's kind of really resonated with me when it's like uh, when you miss somebody, when God takes someone you care about away, He always leaves the best part of them with you. And like if you close your eyes, do you remember Hakeem laughing? Do you remember how he used to play with you? Well, that is the best parts that he leaves with us when someone we care about is gone. And that was like a great scene. And it really also is very telling with his character because he's an angel. He's dead, technically. And it's like he had that brief moment of recollection of someone he probably cared about when he was alive, because he mentioned he was cut down in his prime. Uh, uh, so he, briefly just recalls probably somebody he cared about, like his mother, and then it was never touched on. Well, it wasn't about him, but you get to see that little glimmer, like there's someone like I miss very much too that I had to leave behind. And every once in a while, I had to remind myself of this particular line that I'm telling you just to make me feel better. By Preacher Life, they're very, very good film, very wholesome film, very recommended. The Predator. Now, I remember watching this with my father too. Now, my stepmother, at some point when I was like a teenager, because we had I remember us having like a discussion, and she was like, "You let him watch that movie?" And it was like, "There's no big deal. It's just a movie." But yeah, it was like look. I mean, at that time, I was like, yeah, looking back on it, it's probably not ideal for you to. I mean, watch like an alien rip people's spines off as trophies, but I wasn't really complaining either. So, but The Predator, one of the best Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. I love the first one, holds up to this day. Solid movie. Just like there's so much you can tell with. I'll get to it in a moment with the sequels, but there's so much you can tell and so much lore behind the Predator alien. Because I think because they had like Alien versus Predator. Because in a sequel to the Predator 2 with Danny Glover, there was like a brief scene where like there's like a xenomorph's skull that was collected. So it goes to show that we that was the first time we acknowledged that the holy crap, xenomorphs exist in this universe. But we just thought like these are two separate things. But I think that was like the first clue that this is a collaboration. But none of the Alien versus Predators really bear fruit, which they could have done so well, but somehow they dropped the ball on it. I don't know what they did. Maybe it's because it was PG-13 rated, or uh, the actors involved wasn't that good, but something was amiss with those Alien versus Predator films. And a lot of the Predator films as a whole uh, didn't do as well. But man, the Alien franchise dropped the ball even more so. But yeah, the first Predator movie is highly recommended. Definitely check it out. Then Predator 2, uh, now you instead of the regular jungle, you're in the concrete jungle of LA. Daniel Daniel Glover had to deal with uh, a different uh, alien. They called it Kokcha. I might be butchering that a little bit, but that's what their alien species name is, the Kokcha. But we just call them predators. That's what it really was. Like a hunting alien. That's a very cool idea. But yeah, you had a concrete jungle, and then instead of fighting soldiers like the first one, this alien's fighting cops, is killing cops and gang members, anybody with guns, because they like this is like the warriors of the concrete jungle, especially on the hottest day ever. They always come at come hunting when it's the hottest uh, season in a particular area. That's when they thrive off the heat. But this movie is like a good sequel. Is a solid sequel, and of course they did make a third one. Yeah, Predators, which I believe is still a pretty good cool idea. It's just anything after that wasn't as good. They did The Predator, uh, was recently in the past couple of back in 2018, I think. They made another Predator movie, which they wanted to like expand on dealing with uh, aliens head on, or at least be properly prepared, because now they're wise. After so many years, they became wise to the predator as an alien species and as a threat since the 80s when Arnold was dealing with him. There's a whole lore behind it. You need to look it up. But it's just like, you know, it's supposed to be like something uh, build up to something that it kind of fell flat. But it was a clever idea. The fact that like, okay, humanity, but there's another thing. It's like, the predator like to hunt in secret. They don't want to be found out. That's why they had a little arm piece that explodes in a nuclear blast that takes out any evidence of their being there. But uh, now that they're well known, now they're becoming what we found out. Spoiler in the last Predator film, they're now going to have to do a full-on invasion of Earth because to their race, they cannot be known. They cannot be found out. Normally, they just wipe themselves. That one alien will have to wipe themselves away, kind of like suicide bombing themselves, just to get, you know, erasing the evidence. But if an entire planet knows, or at least majority of the human or a species knows about them, they had this dude on full invasion and wipe them all out just to keep their secret. It's kind of intense. But in the Predator, this Predator movie, uh, there's a group of predators that kidnap different type of soldier and criminal and terrorist from any kind of walk of life around the world and put them on like a different planet that's pretty much set as a game preserve, which is very unique. An alien planet is a base of operations for a game preserve that go hunting. I'm not sure if it's like more than likely just testing their skills before they actually go on a hunt by themselves in other planets in the solar system. But yeah, you got Adrian Brody and uh, I forgot the other actor's name. You got like uh, all these a few of these are very, very well known. You got like guy who plays Venom in Spider-Man 3 on here. I forgot his doggone name. He was on that 70s shows. He's on it. But yeah, and you got these group of people who don't know each other, and it's like they parachute in, waking up from like an unconscious state, and it's like, okay, uh, they eventually come to find out like, yeah, they've been doing this for life. One of them is a Japanese guy who found a katana. It's just like with Predators 2, where like Danny Glover was handed after if you beat a Predator successfully in one-on-one combat, you get the any Predators around who witnesses that as a prize to the victor over one of their own. Uh, per their culture, they gift them a weapon. And Danny Glover got an old pistol that was uh, uh, received from a pirate. There's a story behind that, but there's a pirate's pistol that Danny Glover was gifted as a prize for being a predator that he was dealing with in his movie. But in this movie, one of the Japanese guys found a katana that was stored away, and it's like, this is very old. They must have been doing this for a very long time, which means the first Predator movie wasn't their first go around on planet Earth. Obviously, uh, they, medieval Japan, they gone to uh, golden days of piracy. They stopped there. There's a whole plethora of comics. They're in like the Marvel comics universe now. That and Aliens, did Marvel bought them up, Predator and Alien. So there was a Batman versus Predator comic series. The first one is actually very good. The rest are very suck very much. But the Predator has like a whole lore behind them that was better explored in the comics rather than the movies. But the movies does do their fair share explanations too. But it'd be very interesting to have like a solo one-off comic or arc series or whatever you want to call it with one of these Marvel characters. I mean, the Punisher up against one of these Predators would be a great comic. Uh, uh, and maybe like Tony Stark dealing with a Predator in a comic. That'd be cool. Captain America. Like all these superheroes are technically warriors in their own right. Uh, but of course, you gotta show them killing the Predator, killing some people. Might show them killing just regular know nothing characters, or at least one-off characters that you meet for the first time only in this little story that you can easily throw in a meat grinder and show off the Predator actually killing. It's just like Punisher Max. It's like they go all out with the gore and rated R level stuff. Or speaking of rated R, Deadpool versus the Predator. Can you imagine that? Him making all those references to all the previous movies, that would be so good. I would read that comic. You'll probably easily mention that. Obviously, he would be. It'll be hard pressed to not mention Deadpool not mentioning. Oh, did you? I remember you beating this Bat character. So, you know, oh, I can. If he can beat you, I definitely can take you on. That kind of thing. It'll be like great. The Predators. Those three movies I just mentioned are the best Predator movies in my opinion. You don't really need to see the other Predator films. It's perfectly fine. Hulk versus Predator. Yeah, but let's be honest. Well, Predator got like weapons that can easily cut through a lot of people. So Hulk can like easily survive anything that could be thrown at him. He might still get cut, but he won't die. So Hulk can easily take on a Predator. But maybe I don't know. Maybe a group of 3 Predators. That'd be a little more challenging, maybe to the Hulk. Wolverine versus a Predator seems ideal. Seems perfect match made in heaven there. The Prince of Egypt, man, that this is one is like a very good one. Actually, Egyptian looking. even more so than any other depiction of Egypt in film, because they usually cast white people. Well, the voice actors for the most part in this film are white, but the the this is the only one I seen that actually have the characters look Egyptian, black, Muslim ish Egyptian people of color. And this one has like great music, but a nice retelling of the story of Moses is very good, very good. Highly recommend it. I haven't seen this in years. I think the last time I saw it was probably in school, but I could be wrong because I've seen it at home before. But it's like a great film on its own. Oh, it is a very underrated movie. It's well crafted. Now, of course, we already know like the ultimate end of Moses. If you've ever read the story of Moses, he got the people out of Egypt, and got the commandments, but tried to get them to the promised land, but didn't quite get there. You know, ultimately, but he did what he accomplished, which uh, get the Israelites and the Jews out of the slavery of the Pharaoh. And I gotta say, in terms of history, that moment when Moses saved those Jews from slavery should have been the end of slavery. Period. That should have been the moment of nipping it in the bud of slavery. Period. Like human history since then seems like to try to make slavery 2.0 with black people, and it's like you know you know Moses, the whole Moses and the Israelites and their bondage into slavery should have been done. That should have been the last of a focal point of slavery, human slavery, period. And it's just crazy how it's like every society had to enslave somebody. But this movie is very good. Love the Princess of Egypt. Very good thing to show your children in a way. If you want to show them like a good telling of the story of Moses, Prince of Egypt, very good, well deserved movie. Check it out. The Princess Bride. Now you talk about a quotable movie. This movie is so dang quotable. It's just phenomenal. It's on Disney Plus, but man, I love this. I remember when I was telling the story when I was discussing about in a previous video about Harry Potter franchise. I went to this Harry Potter themed party slash bar. Uh, Me and this group of girls that well, not group, but just a couple of girls were trying to find the area to hang out at that party, and we passed by this. It was up in the north side of Illinois, or north side of Chicago. There was this fencing class apparently that was walking by, and we noticed, and it was like, I made a comment. It's like, oh my god, that reminds me of Princess Bride, and I shot. I was like, oh my god, I love the Princess Bride, and we just started bonding over the Princess Bride because, like, literally, like as you wish, you know. Uh, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. It's like it's just a great movie, a very wholesome movie. Probably like good love story, good romantic movie. This movie, Deadpool, the first Deadpool movie, uh, Destination Wedding that I mentioned earlier in the previous video, are solid romantic movies that I think uh, it is not cheesy. It doesn't play anybody stupid or a character stupid or make no sense. It make perfect sense for relationship to blossom through this romance. Uh, uh, Deadpool, Princess Bride, and Destination Wedding are, I gotta say, personally, are proper romantic movies that actually make sense. It doesn't seem weird. It's no sexual, unlike 16 Candles, where it's got very problematic, rapey undertones to it. This one is like it hits all the check marks. So yeah, Princess Bride, highly recommended. Very quotable movie. I'm pretty sure it's on Disney Plus. If not, you can easily find it on any streaming service. I'm pretty sure it's still on Netflix. But man, Princess Bride is amazing. I love Princess Bride. Carrie Elways still looks phenomenal for his age, and it's like he still uh, has that suave, debonair, swashbuckler attitude about him that he hasn't missed a beat. Like everybody involved were fantastic in this. Very practical effects, cinematography top notch, and it's just like it's funny and it's like good swashbuckling kind of action, classic film. And it's like a very good, very good. And Deadpool, speaking of Deadpool, he made a joke about this in like his PG-13 version of the Deadpool 2. And like he actually got Fred Savage to do a scene playing his character in like the recreation of his old room in the Princess Bride, because it's Princess Bride is a storybook that's being told to him, Fred Savage, by his grandfather. And like, you know, he pretty much like recreating that so he can just like tell like a wholesome story with Fred Savage. And you should look it up. It's very funny. It's probably the funniest things I've seen Deadpool do. And it's like Ryan Reynolds is like phenomenal. When he's not bugging Hugh Jackman to come back to be Wolverine, he's making fun of other films. I want to see him do skits where he just poking fun at other films. It's like Deadpool pokes fun at films should be a comic book series on its own. It's hilarious. So much fun. Resident Evil Apocalypse. Now, this is the only Resident Evil movie I'll have on this list because this is the only. Well, the first one is solid. It's fine. But the second one really made it look like an actual Resident Evil movie. Everything else afterwards became crap. But you want like a good Resident Evil movie, Resident Evil Apocalypse fit that bill. And it's like, man, it Mia Jovovich, she isn't one of the. Personally, I don't think he's like a great uh, action star because a lot of her stuff she's in, she's usually is usually her husband, who's a director who casts her, and there's no other director that actually calls out and say, you know what? I need Mila in this film. Nobody does. Nobody thinks she's like that good of an actress. She is fine. She's serviceable, but I wouldn't say she's one of like the greatest ones. She's supposed to be in like a Monster Hunter movie that, I think that came out last December, and it wasn't good. Did you really think it would have been? And that really sticks in my craw. It's like you got Detective Pikachu and the Tomb Raider reboot. You would think like directors in Hollywood learned a lesson about making good video game movies. And it's like, okay, we gotta stay true to this. Sonic movie as well was great. And it's like, okay, maybe they finally realized that you gotta stay true to the core of these films and what made them good, and translate that into film. You muck with that, at least muck with that too much, where it's unrecognizable. Of course, people are gonna hate it. What do you expect? But uh, Resident Evil Apocalypse is a solid Resident Evil movie. Probably the closest to being what the actual games are, or at least the classic games. Because at the time, I think Resident Evil 4 was the only Resident Evil movie or Resident Evil game out, or I think maybe 5. Either I'm pretty sure it was 5 that was out at the time, and uh, it's just that it really captured that atmosphere of Resident Evil, and you get introduced to a few, at least a couple of well-known characters from the game, like Nemesis. But yeah, great film. Resident Evil is highly recommended. Only Resident Evil movie that you should even watch. If you want to check out a good Resident Evil movie, this is the only one. The Chronicles of Riddick series. Now, Vin Diesel, besides the Fast and Furious franchise, he really hit the mark with this character uh, Riddick. Uh, yeah, this dude was phenomenal. Uh, the Pitch Black, Chronicles of Riddick, and Riddick. All three movies I highly recommend. They're very good. Van Diesel is phenomenal in it, and like everybody was just like, let's be honest, everybody else is just pretty much supporting. But they're good in their own right, especially in the third one. That's like very very good. But yeah, Van Diesel is he is this character. And it's like when like he plays up that attitude of Riddick. Uh, he's talking about like a straight up killer. I kind of want to see like a fight between Riddick and a predator, because Riddick, by his own rights, is a predator because he's like the only he's an alien species technically, because he's the last survivor of a race of beings called Furians. It's like just cutthroat, skillful killers in their craft, and he's like the last of them. And it's kind of like I want to see like Riddick up against a predator. That would be very interesting. Kind of want Hollywood to definitely try to do like a crossover, or at least a comic book to do a crossover with those two characters. And or at least if you ever watch Death Battle on YouTube, I kind of want to see uh, Riddick versus one of the Predators, and just to see like who will win in that, because Riddick definitely was very skillful and like not the one to be caught for long. He escaped every prison he's ever been in. If he somehow managed to be caught, even if he's caught, it's usually because he wants to be caught, and he always got some plan that's like some out of the box thinking he does. This is like this dude is can be a serious threat if he wants to be, and it's like he's a cool action star. He like says what he doesn't say much, but when he says something, like people listen. And it's like, yeah, definitely check out the entire Riddick movie films. RoboCop. Now I gotta say, like the first RoboCop still is solid. The second one is all right, but after that, there's no other RoboCop movie that you probably should be wasting your time watching. But the first RoboCop is solid, very good. Uh, it's pretty much just like based in Detroit. You know, a new rookie cop sent their partner up with this female cop, Lewis. Love Lewis, great actress. Uh, she and Murphy go on their first patrol, end up getting dealing with the dad from that '70s show. He was like a bad guy in this, and you know, Maine's pretty much Murphy leaving for dead, and OCP, Omni's consumer products company, in the fake company in the movie rebuilds Murphy to make them a, a, a cop, but like a cop they feel like they feel like they can control, like the but the human aspect still crept through. So this is kind of like a cop that people I kind of wish existed in real life, because he follows three basic rules that every cop should pretty much understand, like serve the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law. All three work in conjunction with the other, and they are never at odds with each other. And it's like they all follow each other in tandem, like full circle. And it's like every cop in real life should be able to like follow the same mandate. You serve the public, they don't serve you. You protect the innocent above all else. You don't just shoot on sight. Uh, and uphold the law. You means you follow every word of the law, because everybody has rights, and you maintain that. And I wish every cop followed that stuff, and it wouldn't be issue with people won't have issues with cops if they follow that kind of mandate. yeah, and then this movie is good. It holds up. A lot of like, it's not a lot of '80s movies that holds up. Uh, but when like if there's like a handful of '80s movies that hit that cultural touchstone that you know by some divination from the director they managed to craft a movie so good that stands the test of time. Like Ghostbusters is made in the '80s, Police Academy is made in the '80s, uh, Terminator made in the '80s, Back to the Future made in the '80s. They all was so well crafted compared to most other movies that was made in the '80s that stood the test of time. That despite their bad sequels, they stood the test of time. Where it's like it's hard to cast lightning in a bottle twice. That's when they try to do a reboot of RoboCop uh, back in 2017, I think, or 2016. It did not work, and they try to modernize it. They have the guy who played uh in Suicide Squad, the Amanda Waller's soldier that's supposed to be leading the team of the Suicide Squad. Forgot his real life name, but the character he played was Rick Flag in DC Comics. In the movies, Rick Flag. They cast him as Alex Murphy in the reboot, which is not a bad choice, but it's not. It wasn't good. I mean, at the time, when I was fresh off of watching it or watching it on TV, not in the theater, I thought it was like okay, it's a solid movie, but after a couple of rewatch, it's like Michael Keaton is in it as plays one of the bad guys, and it's like you got a lot of great actors in this film, and it's like what happened? Maybe because it wasn't rated R either. That's another thing. I don't think it was rated R. I think it was PG-13, which kind of sucked. Because the first RoboCop movie was rated R for RoboCop, because that's how you make a fucking RoboCop movie. But yeah, highly recommend RoboCop. The Rocky and Creed movie. I had to put this together in one thing because uh, the first, well, I like to say, because Drago played an instrumental role in a few of these, but Rocky to a lot of people in Philadelphia is still like that's why he got a statue. He's the creme of the creme, or that's how you pronounce it, creme of the creme of like Philly. Excuse me. The first two Rocky movies, but then again, in the if you want to watch 1 through 4, the fifth one is like Stallone trying to do like another one. I guess he felt inclined to do so at the time. It was all right. You know, uh, the sequels to the Rocky 2 wasn't as good. But when they did Creed, which I didn't see in a theater, it took me such a long time to see the first Creed movie with Michael B. Jordan. And like honestly, Michael B. Jordan is like a very cool dude. Did you know like he's such a huge fan of Naruto that he literally has like shoes and jackets with like that he had personally made with Naruto stuff on it. Dude's like a true anime fan, but I think he like in particular loves Naruto. Naruto is a third favorite anime of mine. But man, Creed, Rocky are great films. It's like you know uh, phenomenal. Uh, I, I didn't. It's hard for me to recall if I seen like the second Creed movie. Yeah, I'd like to say I did. Yeah, I definitely did because uh, because he was fighting that big dude that's supposed to have been uh, Drago's son, because it comes like full circle in a way. But yeah, the Rocky films are just fantastic. But the first one, the first two, and the two Creed movies are like probably very high on the list of top, in terms of like better quality Rocky films. So yeah, definitely check out these Rocky films. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Now, I mentioned briefly about Jessica Rabbit when I was going over the Goofy movie in terms of cartoons that people seem attracted to, or at least was designed to be so attractive that you get kind of like your brain gets little mix messages, and it's like Jessica Rabbit, my God, and it's like, whew. And it's like you talking about like you know well drawn character, and but this is pretty much like I mean things like Detective Pikachu and Space Jam. This they wouldn't exist without this movie. Just to be honest, because this I think started it all when it comes to like uh, combining live action with cartoons and making it work so well. But this is the only movie that you will ever see both Warner Brothers cartoons like Bugs Bunny and Disney Mickey Mouse together in a movie. All those characters from these different franchises all together. It's the only movie you'll ever see that happen. It will never happen again. It will never do it. They will never do it. They're only little, even though people at the companies talk with each other all the time, but they'll never collaborate like that ever again, which is a shame because that blew my mind when I saw like there's at least a couple of scenes with Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny together, cracking jokes with each other. That was insane. It was good, and you got the classic actors that were still alive at the time doing these voices again. And then you had Daffy Duck and Donald Duck together. That was crazy. But yeah, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is very hilarious. Another detective movie, mind you, and it's just it is hilarious. It's just you'll see a lot of references, and a lot of those classic corny cartoon jokes that slapstick and anvils falling on people's heads. It's like just just poking fun of cartoons and poking fun at itself and the detective noir trope and all the other stuff. It's just a great film. That's why it received 4 Academy Awards apparently, and it's like it's a great film, very well done, very well crafted, and a lot of combination of live action and animated uh, characters. Oh, for whatever success they might have or whatever will have in the future, they owe it to Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And I do highly recommend watching this film. Romeo Must Die. Now, I got a couple more Jet Li movies on the list, but this I had to put on the list because of Aaliyah, the late great Aaliyah, who I think she died in one of the plane crashes in 9/11. I could be wrong, but I know it was some kind of accident. I think it was an aircraft thing, which is very sad. At the time, you would think that she and Jet Li had like the part of incredible chemistry with each other, and it's like nobody wouldn't have bat an eye would see these two together in a real life relationship because they were like it's very having fun. They had so much fun on set, obviously, because the chemistry was strong with these two. Romeo Must Die is kind of like a kung fu version of Romeo and Juliet. You got like two gangster families uh, and then two people who started like get into like a decent relationship. This is actually a good love story on its own right too, that that makes sense. That doesn't seem hokey or at all. It's just like yeah, these two had an incredible energy, vibes, chemistry, all that good stuff, and the martial arts in here obviously is top notch because Jelly is just incredible, and yeah, Aaliyah always great, and it's like well missed to this day. Cousin of DMX. It wasn't until she died and I realized that she was the cousin of DMX. It's like it explains a lot because a couple of movies that she ever been in, he's also in. So yeah. Woman Must Die, a great martial arts film, a good martial arts slash romantic film, technically, but great film all in all. Highly recommended. The Rugrats movie. You got Rugrats in Paris and the first Rugrats movie. Now, these two are tear jerkers. I just want to warn you right now. Tear jerker movies. And they're fun, of course. They made by Nickelodeon, obviously. They maintain the core of what we loved about the Rugrats. If you grew up in the 90s, Rugrats was a phenomenal juggernaut of a cartoon. Nickelodeon, like, that was their bread and butter for the longest time, along with things like Hey Arnold, uh, Angry Beavers, Rocko's Modern Life, Nick Jr. stuff too, like Blue's Clues and stuff. That's way before like SpongeBob ever came to the scene, but SpongeBob kind of like took over as like the mascot of Nickelodeon. But yeah, the first one was pretty much telling the story about this first time that you know dealing with like Tommy Pickles' parents uh, they having like a baby. Tommy's worried to be replaced. Dill Pickles pretty much like the goofiest kid, but adorable too at the same time. And like, well, I'm not gonna spoil this scene. There is a heart wrenching scene in the third act, at least halfway through the movie, that teared me up as a kid. But and they on top of that, they follow up with like an awesome sequel to Rugrats in Paris and pretty much centered around Chucky. And because for the longest time, if you watched the Rugrats TV show, Chucky's dad was a single parent for the longest time until he met up with a woman with her own child who's also a single parent, a Japanese uh, girl, Kimmy. And that's her up there above Tommy's head. She was a great addition to the roster. She was amazing. Like, uh, I haven't seen these movies in a long while, but I know for a while they still hold up. They are two of the incredible Rugrats films, and definitely you gotta have sit down with your kid. If you have kids now and you grew up with this movie, you have to watch this with your kid, and they will have a love for Rugrats. I'm pretty sure CBS took over a lot of the Nickelodeon cartoon shows, so they might have that. But Nickelodeon should have its own streaming app like Disney Plus, so you can watch all the classic, Nickelodeon and Nick Jr. cartoons that you grew up with. It's like, I would kill to watch like, just binge watch PB&J Otter, Blue's Clues, Rugrats, Rocko's Modern Life, Hey Arnold, Angry Beavers, SpongeBob SquarePants. There's so much good SpongeBob SquarePants episodes. um, I didn't put SpongeBob SquarePants movie on the list, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people love that. So you could easily check that out if you're a SpongeBob SquarePants fan. But it's so much good Nickelodeon content that was, that we grew up with up to the point of SpongeBob SquarePants, that even stuff that I probably haven't watched myself, like Drake and Josh, you can easily put that on or Nickelodeon Plus or something. Nickelodeon should have their own thing, so that way I'll buy that in a second. So I can just, if I feel like watching Nick Jr. stuff, I can just put that on. Cause Nick Jr. was jamming. You remember Face of Nick Jr. The color face, the character Face. You remember him? Man, I love that character. I was like, he was like a good little transition between like commercials and back to the show, and it's like Nick Jr. Was the thing back then. They growing up, man, Nick Jr. Was Nick Jr. I want to do a video one day with Nick about talking about Nick Jr., Cartoon Network, and Disney when it comes to their original content and their cartoons that they produce, like uh, Nick Jr. and regular Nickelodeon and Nick at Night. Then you got Disney's original cartoons or original movies, and then Cartoon Network and Adult Swim and Toonami. I want to be able to do a video I was on the list. I want to talk about that, but I want to save it for another video. But those three, growing up, those were the three cable networks that produce quality content for TV shows and original movies. They did it so well, and I don't even think uh, uh, I'm pretty sure there might be some good stuff today that I'm not privy to, but man, they knock it out of the park growing up when I was like grade school into high school. You know, in terms of good quality cartoons, those three were like the juggernauts. I mean, of course, Kids WB had like Static Shock and Batman Beyond and stuff like that, and Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm not knocking those. That is a good runner-up and deserves an honorable mention. But man, they and they were my jam growing up, and a lot of people will concur to that. The Rush Hour collection, one, two, and three, uh, they're very good. Well, the first two is probably even better. The third one is supposed to have been like well, all three seems to be centered around more so with Jackie Chan's character, Lee, and it's like, well, the first one not so much. It seemed like just like East meets West kind of same old tale like Lethal Weapon, not Lethal Weapon, but just like the whole buddy cop thing, just like East meets West kind of buddy cop thing. But the last two movies seem to be centered around Lee's character, and I thought it was better in the second one. But the third one, I would have thought, okay, this one should be centered around Chris Tucker's character, and Jackie Chan backing him up, like Chris backed Lee up in the second one, because it seems more about dealing with a thief that knew a criminal that knew your father, and you're trying to take him down. Chris Tucker should have his like a movie centered around anything that's happening on with his past or something he has to deal with, and that was never explored. That was I thought that was a shame. That's kind of because the third one not as good, and it's like it's a shame to wrap up the third one. They might make a fourth one. It's been talks. I don't know, but the third one should have been Chris Tucker's centered story and Lee backing him up. But the Rush Hour movies are very good, and the first two is probably even more so better than the third one. But check out all three. You'll definitely get a kick out of them. They're very funny. The martial art skills of Jackie Chan is still phenomenal. This man is just great at he does. Okay, I think this is the only war film on the list, but the only one I actually care for. But Saving Private Ryan. This is also a star-studded cast. You know, people that you never known they'll be in this. But this is another Tom Hanks film that's very good, set in World War II, and it's like during D-Day, Normandy, and it's like the first 10 minutes were like kind of hardcore. It's like you're actually there without being there at the time, seeing like all this cruel, like just they knew they was gonna die. There was just the first line of defense before they started to make it up the hill. But a lot of men just got mowed down by the enemy, and it was intense. When I first saw this in school, and man, it was like tough to see. Like literally, I still recall one scene of this dude uh, holding his intestines, crying out for his mama, and I'm pretty sure that would have had happened uh, during that time frame in real life. Like these young kids going into this probably one of the worst wars of American history, and it's like it's intense to see. But as you move along, this was like still one of the it's a Spielberg movie, so of course it was great. But man, it was like uh, uh, just like just a group of men each one losing a life trying to find this, well, minus spoilers, but it's like these group of men just trying to like survive just to find this guy Ryan who supposed to got this letter to get sent home, and it's a gripping story, and I do highly recommend it. If nothing else, it's like probably the only good war movie I actually enjoyed beyond something like Captain America or Wonder Woman. But yeah, definitely check this out. Great gripping story. Like I enjoyed it very much. Another gangster film, Scarface, Al Pacino. Man, two good. Al Pacino does great gangster movies, but this and Godfather really solidify his skill as playing that role of a gangster very well. And it's like seeing him in this role. I mean, like, say hello to my little friend. Who would not know that line? Honestly, I mean, it's very quotable. Uh, just seeing a guy from Cuba just come up from nothing to be easily one of the most powerful gangsters of the 80s at the time. Uh, it's just like kind of awe inspiring, but not something you should be uh, idol worshiping nonetheless, because uh, you know he was like a drug kingpin. Anyway, it's not something that you should aspire to be, but the fact that what he did in order to get there, yeah, Vice City, and they made a video game off of this, kind of like a what if story with Scarface back in the PS2 era video games. I'm not gonna spoil anything. Definitely check out Scarface, and if you want to watch like a walkthrough, there's plenty of people who did walkthroughs of the Scarface video game. Uh, if there was a sequel to a movie, that would have been a pretty cool sequel. I remember that game being pretty fun. I didn't own it. I think I borrowed it from somebody and played a little bit of it, but it was fun. Pretty much GTA in a way, but with Scarface. But yeah, definitely recommend Scarface. Check it out. Uh, do yourself a favor, and it's like you cannot go through your life without watching Scarface at least once. Scary Movie 1 and 2. Now, these I didn't put 3 and 4 on this list because then it wasn't as good. But man, these two movies, definitely introduced me to Anna Faris. I think this is Anna Faris' very biggest breakout role because I love Anna Faris. She's just like Zoe Deschanel. She seems like that kind of cute girl next door kind of vibes, but like a freak behind the scenes, because she gives off that her Allison Flanagan and uh, the other lady I mentioned, Zoe Deschanel. Uh, they might be undercover freaks that we probably don't even realize. But Anna Faris was so good in this movie. She's so funny. I love Anna Faris. Uh, and these two movies are just phenomenal. Holds up very well. Pretty much like a parody of horror film genres at the time, like Scream and The Haunting. Yeah, these two movies are just so good and hilarious. And it's like, do yourselves a favor and watch these films. I'm not gonna spoil all the jokes. You gotta check out the jokes for yourself so you can come in fresh if you haven't seen it. But if any of you did see them, obviously you know when I'm talking about how great these two are. But if you haven't seen it, I'm not gonna say anything. You have to look for yourselves, so you won't be spoiled by any of the jokes, and the way you'll come in fresh. Okay. Speaking of Scream, the Scream collection. Now, I did mention earlier that I don't care for scary movies, but the first time I actually, on purpose, went out my way to see a scary movie, not in the theaters, but on TV, was the first Scream movie. I enjoyed the Scream collection. I liked them all, but uh, Scream 3 wasn't as good, but Scream 4 is very good. It's kind of like the American Pie reunion when you get like a lot of the older class, uh, not class, but older uh, alum of the series to return uh, with a few of the new roster of characters just to, you know, bring it all back. And because the Scream horror character is always somebody new, and it's like is always somebody you least expect or probably expect. It's always some like they never play the same tropes, and it's always like a mockumentary of horror of the times. Because last movie, Scream 4, it was like parodying horror movies that was kind of like those web those home video horror films like Paranormal Activity kind of stuff. It was like parodying those kind of films, and then of course the first one's parodying slasher movies in general, and it's like Jamie Kennedy, he was in the first two, and like he was like that the audience in a way, just talking about okay, this is how you deal with surviving a horror movie. This, that, and the other. Never do this, never do that. Uh, stuff that we all knew growing up watching horror movies is like don't split up, obviously. Uh, and it's like if you say I'll be back, that's pretty much code that you're gonna die. And like usually the virgin always lives, and like the slut or the couple that goes out their way to be alone to have sex, they're gonna die. Obviously, it's always those same tropes. But sometimes they kind of mix it up. Like in the third one, uh, they made a comment about like the black guy always die first, but they turned it on his head on that one. So that was pretty clever. So Scream franchise, I do highly recommend you watching those, especially around Halloween. Another Christmas classic, Scrooged. This is probably my favorite interpretation of the classic Christmas Carol. The Christmas Carol is one of my favorite books, uh, right along with like a lot of Edgar Allan Poe stories and Alice in Wonderland. Christmas Carol is, and then Dante's Divine Comedy are my favorite books that I've read, and I like this interpretation of the Christmas Carol more so than any other interpretation. Uh, of course, Jim Carrey did his animated version of it, and then there's the uh, a Patrick Stewart version that was very well done as well. I like those as well. They're very good. You can check those out too. There's literally hundreds of different interpretations of the Christmas Carol, but Scrooged, the Patrick Stewart version, and uh, I'm blanking on the third one. I just mentioned that, but those three are like the better interpretations of the Christmas Carol. But Scrooge is probably like my personal favorite out of all three, and it's pretty much like a turn on his head in a way. It's like, uh, he's not named Scrooge, but he's played this character. Uh, Dang, another name. Shoot. Uh, it's a S. It starts with an S. His last name starts with an S, like Scrooge, but you don't call him Scrooge. Uh, uh, but anyway, it'll come to me eventually. But Bill Murray plays this TV uh, big wig, like who's in charge of getting TVs and programming into the to your home TV, because he apparently grew up on television, and like he over time became so obsessed with himself and jaded, and of course he meet three ghosts, and you know the song dance. He pretty much learns the true meaning of Christmas and being around people that you love and all this other stuff. But what really sells it to a lot of people is the third act. Towards the end, when he learns his lessons, he gives this big speech among the cast and crew members and on live television, and about like just be kind to each other. It doesn't cost you nothing. Just if you see somebody and you hold out your hand and say, "Hey, how are you doing?" Uh, Show some care for your fellow man. It just like it won't take you too much time out your day just to say, "Hey, I'm here. How can I help you in any way?" Uh, you know, you know, uh, just be there for a person that you know or even don't know. Just pay it forward. Uh, it's not even just around Christmas. Just like every day, just go out your way just to help others less fortunate than you, or if you're in a position of power and you use that power to help others rather than helping yourself. That is just the true meaning of Christmas, or just true meaning of being a human being. And I love this movie. And Christmas Carol always has that kind of moment. That's pretty much the basis of a Christmas Carol. Just not to be a dick, and not to, Alex, Kraus. Cross. Not it's not an S. His last name is Cross. I forgot his first name, but his last name is Cross. Uh, but yeah, it's a great film. I do highly recommend, especially around Christmas time. If you want a good Christmas Carol interpretation, this is the probably easily the best one. Uh, it's one of my favorite Johnny Depp films outside like the uh, uh, movies like The Pirates of the Caribbean or Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Secret Window. Uh, Probably to blow that up a little bit more. I only got like the widescreen version. Yeah. So yeah, Johnny Depp's Secret Window. I forgot who directed it. I can't make that thing any wider. But I watched this as a kid. I think my stepmom rented it for a while. I thoroughly enjoyed that. The reason why I like writing, because I did make a book. It's published. A published book called Epic Tales of the Emerald Avenger is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble if you want to check it out. Epic Tales of the Emerald Avenger. Emerald, as in green, Emerald Avenger. Epic Tales of the Emerald Avenger. I written a book years ago. It pretty much like a superhero story. I kind of get back into that too. Uh, when like if I get this whole when I get this whole voice I think spiraling into something, I could probably have some more uh, proper connections to get me close to some good publishers so I can get back into that because I want to tell this whole big story world, well, not just him but other characters. But yeah, check that out. If you want to support me anyway, you can buy that book on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, and uh, is something like I poured a lot of time into and did a lot of research. It's like very fun. But yeah, this movie is probably was a catalyst to that in some way because he's a writer. I think it was a Stephen King story too, but you know how certain Stephen King books, when they get adapted into a movie, it doesn't turn out exactly how he written it down. But uh, this movie pretty much is like a psychological thriller with a writer alone in a cabin somewhere. It's usually that's how it is with a lot of Stephen King movies, or at least stories. Writer secluded in an area trying to write, uh, dealing with writer's block in a way, and then he's had to deal with this crazy uh, uh, dairy farmer played by John Turturro, who he's getting like stalked and harassed by this crazy farmer who believes he's uh, Johnny Depp's character. He pretty much believes Johnny Depp's character plagiarized his story, and the fact that uh, Johnny Depp's characters kept denying it, and it's just like it becomes this little mind games kind of thing. Is a crazy twist at the end, but you definitely should check it out. It's a great film. I love it. It's one of my favorite Johnny Depp films of all time. Okay, I'll lower this a little bit now. Okay, 7. Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt. Now, this well, there's a lot of Morgan Freeman films that I enjoy, or at least movies that he's been in, like Bruce Almighty, that he just plays off of people, like usually white guys very well. It's just like this whole dynamic as like the older, wiser dude compared to this young hotshot kind of dude. Like he plays that very well. But Morgan Freeman is phenomenal in 7. Him and Brad Pitt, another cop kind of story, but it's more another psychological kind of thriller in a way, trying to catch a killer, pretty much like a Zodiac level kind of killer, but he's killing in the theme towards like the 7 deadly sins. But there is a twist in the end. I'm not going to spoil it. If you haven't seen it, definitely should. Uh, Speaking of twists, I don't think I had this. No, I didn't have it on my list. Fight Club definitely is an honorable mention. Check out Fight Club if you haven't checked Fight Club. I'm not going to say anything about Fight Club. I'm not going to spoil it, anything, because anything talking about that movie is a huge spoiler. Watch Fight Club. Watch 7, but also watch Fight Club. As an honorable mention, watch Fight Club. Highly recommend it. I'm not going to say anything else about it. All right. The Sherlock Holmes movie, the first 1 and 2. I definitely recommend this. Robert Downey Jr. is an amazing actor. I love Robert Jr. and a lot of stuff he's in, I do like him in outside of Iron Man himself. Of course, he's great in Iron Man, but he's also great in Sherlock Holmes. I'm pretty sure they're working on 3 currently because that's what he really wanted to do once he was done playing Iron Man. Get back into making a Sherlock Holmes kind of franchise with him and Jude Law as Watson. I think this is the best interpretation of Watson, period, because in older movie franchises, or at least TV shows, or whatever interpretation of Sherlock Holmes there were, Watson was always this bumbling, fat fool that was just backing Sherlock Holmes up, or at least agreeing to Sherlock Holmes to a lot of stuff, or at least just the doctor as in the dynamic duo between these two. But this one is my favorite one because he's not fat, he's not inept, he's a skillful doctor, and he also can fight on his own because he's also an ex-soldier too. He's a military doctor. He used to be a military doctor. He's just like a regular doctor now after the war, after whatever war he was in. But this is like an action Sherlock Holmes, basically. But the detective work that's involved in this is very good. I love this movie. Part of my favorite Sherlock Holmes. I love Sherlock Holmes stories too, but this is my favorite live action interpretation of Sherlock Holmes at all. I do recommend if you look. I do recommend this, especially if you enjoy detective movies or noir movies. This is like a great detective movie. Great movie. And these two are just phenomenal, and they're funny, and it's just like incredible. Incredible. Shrek. Now, I do like the first 2 Shrek movies, and there's some parts in Shrek 3. But after a while, is another. It's just like with Pirates of the Caribbean. It's another example of people milking a cow until they're dead. and probably even long after they're dead. But I do recommend the first two Shrek movies. They're great. It's a little dated with the jokes, but it's still funny in their way. And I do think that these two should be watched, and I do recommend them. If you feel like you inclined to watch the sequels, go ahead. That's fine. But the first two is like obviously like the best. And Michael Myers. I keep doing it. Mike Myers is great as the role of Shrek. His voice fit the character perfectly. You can see a little bit of Mike Myers in the face, obviously. Eddie Murphy as Donkey can get a little not annoying. It's not like that snowman in Frozen or the Minions, but it's he's like more annoying than his version of Mushu in Mulan. It can get there. He has his comedic moments, but I think the director kind of really want to placate to the annoyance of Donkey, which I guess Eddie Murphy did the job well, but it's like almost ear splitting sometimes here and there. Not all the time, but as movies go on, you're just like, oh my god, you shut this thing up. But the first two Shrek movies, great. Oh yeah, Smash Mouth. Oh yeah, thank you for reminding me. Yeah, Smash Mouth. I think this is the first time. No, scratch that. I think this is the second time I ever heard about Smash Mouth in a film. Because the first one was Rat Race, which is not on the list, but Rat Race is a good film too, with a star-studded cast. Early 2000s, right around the time around like the first Charlie's Angels movie. But yeah, uh, Smash Mouth like was playing in the beginning of this movie, the first one. But Smash Mouth was like something that was shown in Rat Race at towards the end of that movie. But yeah, you're talking about. I think the '90s somehow birthed. It's like if you want something like a perfect example of what the '90s was, Smash Mouth would be probably a perfect example of. You want like they're like the walking '90s. And it's like and people like to make fun of them, which is deserved, but they're decent people, obviously, all in all. But Smash Mouth, people have had their jokes with Smash Mouth and Nickelback in terms of like you know crappy bands, but they had like those one hits kind of thing, which is not to knock them. They're good music, but it's just like you know you didn't build off of it like most bands, or even NSYNC kind of like had more than just bye bye bye, you know and so did like Backstreet Boys had more than just I Want It That Way. It's like Smash Mouth had that one hit, and they rolled that till the wheels fall off. Smoking Aces. This is like a good ensemble, another ensemble cast that's very good. It's pretty much the story is like with Jeremy Piven playing as this magician in Las Vegas that's supposed to be like some kind of informant for the FBI, hold up in a hotel penthouse in Las Vegas, and got these bunch of hitmen, different kinds of hitmen coming after him, and it's just like all these actors. I think this is the first time you see like Chris Pine in it, because Chris Pine plays like a bit role in a way as one of the hitmen, and it's like you know you wouldn't known it was Chris Pine until you actually see him, because he wasn't Chris Pine of the time. He was just Chris Pine, if you catch my drift. But you got uh, uh, Jason Bateman is in this thing, and he was just a bit part too. And it's like he's there and he's gone. He's not. He doesn't have that big of a role in this. But this is Jason Bateman before he was Jason Bateman. And then of course you got Alicia Keys. I think this is one of the first movies Common did his acting roles before, outside of being a musical artist. You got Ray Liotta, Ryan Reynolds, Ben Affleck is in this too. Andy Garcia is in this. So there's a lot of people that you see in this that either bigger. Taraji P Henson is in this. Like a lot of people, like big and small, or at least gotten small then big, kind of uh, actors in this. But this is a great kind of uh, crime drama, like with some comedic elements in this. This is a very, very good movie. They did a sequel to this, wasn't very good, but this is a solid movie on its own right. Highly recommend it. Now, of course, Disney Soul. Like, I'll be hard pressed not to bring this into the list. 'Cause I saw this on Christmas Day on Disney Plus. So good, very beautiful looking movie. Jamie Foxx, perfect. This and Cowboy Bebop, which I will be doing like a review on Cowboy Bebop in another video probably next month. But that show and this movie gives me even more of an appreciation of jazz than I ever did before. I'm not a jazz person, but listen to this music made me want to listen to more jazz because it's so good. And like these are the most realistic looking black people in a Disney Pixar film that I ever seen. And it's like, as but somebody did point it out to me. At least I was watching a video and then talking about Disney Soul, and it's like somebody made a joke that Jamie Foxx's character in Soul has a head that looked like a pear, and I can't not unsee it. And it's like, oh my god, this pear-shaped looking head of his. It's like, wow. But aside from all that, this is a great film. It's kind of like the same thing with Coco. This movie uh, has some deep undertones to it about like finding your purpose in life and what it means to like live out your dreams, things that you want to do for the rest of your life that it seems like this speaks to you, and like anybody can understand that and told in such a way. I will mention this in my Black History Month video that I will do uh, in the upcoming day or two, but I want to mention this now while I'm thinking about it in case I forget to mention it. uh, this is a perfect example of a movie about a black person that isn't about their struggle or inner city turmoil, that kind of thing. This is just like a story you can tell about anybody, but just with a black lead. And I appreciate it that much more. I like that because black people are much more than their struggle. You can tell so much more with us beyond a slavery movie or a gangster movie kind of thing. Or like a run-of-the-mill like sports movie. There's more to us than those. We're not a, a monolith. Uh, yeah, you can tell a story with us with any shape or form, and we're so malleable and like if you do it right, it can be just as great as Soul is. And it's a great film. If you haven't seen it, if you got Disney Plus, or I think it's only on Disney Plus, but if it's on TV at some point in the future, or if you eventually get Disney Plus, check out Disney Soul. It's a very good movie. Highly recommended. Jamie Foxx is incredible. Tina Fey uh, plays along with him. She's very funny. She's always funny. Uh, uh, yeah, and just an overall good looking movie and great storytelling. Space Jam. Now I know this was they show clips of Space Jam 2 with like LeBron James, which I'm intrigued to check out. But man, Space Jam for the longest time, this was so. This is still good. It still holds up as like a great Looney Tunes movie with Michael Jordan. And it's like the only other person that get top billing than Michael Jordan is Bugs Bunny, obviously. But man, this is a great comedy, and it's like, I mean, aliens, you know, coming down to kidnapped the Looney Tunes to run their theme park with them as the attractions, and making a bet to win a basketball game, just to uh, not do all that, because and hiring, or not hiring, but getting Michael Jordan to help them win a basketball game, because he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time, still to this day. And it's like, I mean, LeBron James is today's uh, greatest MVP when it comes to basketball. I think Steph Curry is like a good runner-up behind that. But like, for the longest time, people was hard pressed to like how can you pull that off with LeBron James? Because like, arguably LeBron James is the one of the greatest basketball players. But Michael Jordan, his Sir Airness, it's like, how can you're not replace, but it's like you cannot repeat this. This is like light in a bottle kind of thing, because like, come on, Space Jam, and it's like, I'm intrigued to see how they make it work. And I think Michael B. Jordan is supposed to be a cameo in the sequel, because it'd be funny. Like, I guess it would be funny to have Michael B. Jordan in a movie where they used to have Michael Jeffrey Jordan in it. But yeah, the Looney Tunes. This is a funny film, a very cool story, great to watch with your kids. Highly recommend it. Now, this is another great 80s movie, pretty much parodying Star Wars, but Spaceballs, another great funny parody movie. Definitely recommend it. Directed by Mel Brooks. Now, this is a hilarious movie. It's like so many jokes in this movie. Uh, one of which is my favorite scene out of the entire film. Is like one of the uh, people on the space station, who was Michael Winslow, who's also one of the cops in Police Academy, who does these crazy voices uh, that made him like very recognizable in the Police Academy movies. He's in this as he's just a cameo as one of the people behind like the computers, and it's like, I remember this one scene because you got Rick Moranis as Darth Vader, or at least Darth Helmet, and like and his number two sitting there, were pretty much the leads in the villains in this movie. And like, Michael Winslow was like on the intercom calling like the guys over, like, "Sir, can you come over, sir?" And then like they come over, like, and I was like, "What is it, sir? What is it, cadet?" And I'm like, he's still on the intercom, like, "No, no, 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 you don't need this. We're right here." And he's still with his mouth like, like, and he's Rick Moranis just ripping the it's just like, talk normally. And that cracks me up every time. I like that. It's just like, I don't want to have time to deal with it. It was just so dang funny. I don't know why. It's just like every time I see that scene, I watched that movie just for that scene alone. It was so dang funny. And then another scene with Rick Moranis, and it's like, you're playing the doll version of the movie, and it's like, you got action figure of him and the lead lady interest, and it's like, oh my god, you had the biggest helmet. It's like, yeah, I do. And then like his second in man come bursting in, and it's like he's like, oh my god, knock next time. What you should see? Like, nothing, sir. I didn't see you play with your dollies. Good. was, it was so almost stupid. I was like, oh my god, what is wrong with them? And it's like, you gotta check out this movie. It's hilarious. It's like probably the best. Uh, I'm crying. It's like every time I think about it, it makes me cry. It's so funny. But like, you definitely have to check out this movie. It's probably the best parodies of Star Wars that's out there, and I don't think it's ever been recreated like that outside maybe SNL. But even them, they slip every once in a while. So yeah. Spawn. Great movie. I was when I was making up my list, I was debating whether or not to put this on my maybe DC list because in the comics he did cross over with Batman a couple of times. But then I thought like, no, it's like technically he's like a different. He's Image Comics character. He's not neither. Because not that many Image Comics movies outside of Spawn movie, but they're supposed to be making a Spawn sequel at some point. But Michael J. White as Spawn was phenomenal. I He ruined the name Wanda for me for the longest time because like until like Scarlet Witch Wanda came in the picture of the MCU, but even still, every time I hear the name Wanda, I'm like scream Wanda. And it's like I'm pretty sure like Michael J. White get that every time because like he plays that role of Spawn very well. Uh, is like mid to late '90s, and it's like right because in the '90s, comic books at the time was very edgy. Everything has to be extreme and edgy and dark just to fit the grittiness of the '90s of the time, and it's just like Spawn and Venom and Lobo, characters like that, and Wolverine fit that mold perfectly. That was and Punisher fit that mold perfectly because they represent like that grittiness and edge to them. But like Spawn's a great film. John Leguizamo as Violator is funny as hell. Uh, he played that role very well, and like yeah, I recommend Spawn, especially if you're a Spawn fan. Definitely check out this. It was a TV show back in the day of HBO of a Spawn TV series. You can check that out on YouTube. They have the entire series on YouTube for free. You can check that out. It's very good too. It's only lasted one season, which is terrible. I mean, like we need to bring that back. Bring back Spawn TV show. They definitely need to do that. But Spawn is a great movie. Uh, 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 Not that gory, but it has its moments. And the CGI effect is very shoddy sometimes. But sometimes when there's little moments when the CGI looks so cool. Like there's a moment when like his mask, because he got a living costume, his mask, like he usually had to keep like the mask off for most of the movie. But when he maxes mask up, there's a moment in one scene you'll see it when it's like it's like in a party and it's like his mask forms over his face like chains wrapped around his face and it looks so good. If you haven't seen it, you can check out Spawn. Check it for yourself. It's very good. But there's like moments like that, and like the moments with his cape. I think they took a lot of time to make sure they at least got the cape right because the cape makes the whole costume work. It's like there's like Spawn probably had the most iconic, coolest costume in comic history. Honestly, he's right up there in the upper echelon. It's like the most iconic comic book costumes, and like that suit really makes this movie. It makes the character, and it's just like it's phenomenal. It's great. Oh, okay. I thought I had all the stuff loaded up. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Want to break this up again. Just so I'm gonna make sure I got I'm almost done. I'm literally like almost done. I'm at the end cap here. So well, it's always come over. I'm already at 2 hours, so I'm gonna break this up in another video. I'll be back in a second with a final video with the rest of my favorite non-superhero movies. I knew I had to break this up at some point, but just bear with me. I'll be right back.